Today we're going to be going through the steps for carving a caricature. A typical caricature would be one of our Santa Clauses. I use these a lot for ornaments carved in a half rectangular stick when it's just been cut down the middle, and then I go back and hollow out the back just to make them lighter when they hang on the tree. The steps we're going to go through today can be applied to this. They can be applied to different ornaments. Carving witches is an excellent way to practice because it's hard to mess up. You can make the nose and the mouth just about any dimension or shape that you want and make a successful witch, and turn the hat into, you know, something other than a Santa hat. The principles we're going to go through would be the same even if you were carving with a flat stock and starting off. The only difference is that when you start flat, then you have to relieve the cheeks back and the beard back so that you leave a block of wood in here for the nose. But once you get that, then the rest of the steps are basically what we're going to go through today. So the steps that we're going to go through, and I will say that these are the steps we'll follow, but as we proceed through the face, you'll see the importance of blocking everything out. You can't really go in and do the nose from start to finish and then hope to do the eyes and the rest of the face, because they all blend together and sizes have to be kind of relative. So we'll lay the blocking in, and then we'll block in the nose, the eyes, and then probably adjust those as we go through it. But for the nose, the steps we're going to do are basically to define where the brow is going to go, the bottom of the nose. We'll define the width of the nose as being about one eye, the width of the nose at the bottom. Then we'll take our gouge, we'll lay in here, and we'll go up the side of the nose into the eye channel that we've created at about a 20-degree angle, leaving a block of wood down here for the wings. We'll then put in some cuts down here to help define the nostrils, and leaving this cartilage right in the center, which is the septum. And you'll see from everybody's face from the side, you'll see the center of the nose with that cartilage. We'll then do further refining and cutting in the nostrils and getting this more of a triangular shape. We'll set the wings, and we'll define this smile line, which helps bring in the area that we're going to define for the cheeks. It also puts the nose at about half on the face, half off the face. You don't want your nose hanging completely off the face. So that's the steps we'll go through for the nose. When we get to the eyes, what we're going to do first is we've already got this eye channel started that we defined up here when we started the brow of the nose. Once we have that eye channel defined, we'll draw a shape for the upper eyelid. Now the eye itself is not a circle unless you're looking for a deer in the headlights effect. It's basically kind of like a squashed football, with the peak being at about 30% of the width of the eye. So we'll have a shape like this. We'll extend that on past the center line that we created with that channel, and then we'll use that later. We'll then take our knife, cut straight in, define that upper eyelid and the pupil and iris and every eyeball that's in here. We'll then take two small wedges out of the corner of the eye, and that's to give us the roundness that we want to develop from the inside to the outside of the eye. When looked at from the side, we don't want to see the inside of the eyeball. So you'll see the outside, the peak of the eyeball, and then that will be hidden. From there, we'll go ahead and sketch in and then cut the upper eyelid. Making our cuts here, we'll try to go from the center to the inside of the eye, center to the outside of the eye, to reduce the chip out that we get. Next step would be to go ahead and add in some additional features. This area up here is then going to become our eyelashes, or not eyelashes, our eyebrow. And we can either leave that very simple with not a lot of definition, or if we want to do on our caricature, bring it out more, we'll cut this and make a recess to help pop that eyebrow out. Then we could go ahead, if you're painting this, you'll probably just paint in the pupil and the iris, but if you're carving and want to leave it just with a wood stain, we can cut those two features in. Back down here, I forgot to mention too that we'll be defining that lower eyelid a little bit more, so that we've got the total wrap of the eyeball going through there. So another important feature when we do this eye is we want the top of the eye to extend further out than the bottom, so that we've got a shape like this rather than reversed, which gives you an odd look. So that being said, what we're going to try is I'm going to go for something like this. I usually take one of these sticks. It's about 12 inches long. It's 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 wide. I tend to do them in blocks of 3. I find that easier to hold rather than cutting my pieces into a 4-inch piece. So we're going to lay out 3 pieces on this, and then hopefully cut one of them, carve one of them today. So I'm just going to roughly say, oh, okay, that's that's about where I'm going to lay in the faces. So first thing we'll do is we'll come in here and we'll just kind of define, rough shape of where the hat's going to be. I don't want to cut that hat in till after I pretty well define the face, because I find myself getting into a situation where I want to move the eyes up or make the nose bigger, and it often gets into where the hat is. We can always come back and define that hat. So put in a line here. That's going to be where my eye channel is going to go. That's going to be the bottom of my nose, and then we'll figure out how we're going to shape the mustache as we go. One of the principles, that you want to kind of adhere to is the location of the features on the face. And one I refer to all the time is this book by Jack Ham. It's been one of my reference go-to books since I started carving. Jack gets into design of the facial features. He talks about where they're placed on the face. One important thing is that your eyes are about 50% of the distance from the top of your head to the bottom of your head. And the other thing that Jack does is he likes to define things in terms of an eye width. Now you can find all kinds of rules out there on the internet with the way people define the shapes of the face and everything, but Jack has got it down into eyes. It's easier for me to remember how to lay a face out based on that. And so I tend to go with his guidance in laying out our caricature. Now I use those as a guideline when I lay out the face, but when I'm doing a caricature, I use it as a guideline, but I don't really, measure things out anymore. I just say, oh, okay, that's about where I want the eyes, that's where I want the nose. And so that's what we're going to do today. So the first thing, let's go ahead and start this where we're going to put in the brow, and where we're going to define the eye channel to go through. So we're just going to make a series of V-cuts here, opening that up. Now you can do this with your knife. Once you define it, you can do it with a V-tool also. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of this wood off this peak here. Now, this triangular piece of wood makes it easier to carve the face because your face is back at a 90-degree angle from your nose, so you've already got that roundness going to your face. If you're working with a flat piece of stock, then you're going to have to build that in and get some shape there. But we don't want it to be totally peaky, so we're just taking a little bit off there to get rid of that. Still have the roundness that we want to the face, the hat, and other features. Alright, so we're just going to continue to open up this channel. The top part that we're cutting here is where we're going to be placing the eyes. Making it a little bit wider out here on the face, probably about 3/4 of an inch or so. Nice pivoting cut, swiveling using my thumb as a fulcrum. Alright, so then we got the bottom of the nose going in here. When you place this, you can make it a little bit longer than you want. You can always go back and shorten his nose, but it doesn't work well going the other way. Just a straight in cut to get the bottom of the nose going, taking that wood out from underneath. Pretty good width in there. Starting to get a profile going to the nose. Still don't have a good profile though. It looks like he's run into a wall at this point. So from the tip of the nose back to the brow, we're just going to start sloping that back. Alright, till we get something we're happy with, something that has got a good profile, a good slope going to it. So you remember Jack said that we wanted the head to be about 5 eyes wide, so I know how wide it is. So I'm gonna say there's one eye between each of the eyes, then you got another eye out here to the side and to the side, and then one more over here to the side of your head. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eyes. Your nose is going to be about 1 eye wide, so I can drop that down and say that's how wide my nose is going to be. Now, that's a good standard nose size, but this is my Santa Claus, and I usually make Santa Clauses with a little bit wider nose. So depending on the caricature you want to carve, you can make it, you know, bigger, smaller, however you feel like. Now, the next thing we're going to do is remember that we wanted the wings to go down here, so about 1/3 of the way up is where I'm going to start taking some material out. So what I'm going to do next is just take my gouge, and this is about a 1/4 inch. I'd say that's probably about a number 7 or 9. 1/4 inch, 7 or 9. We're going to lay that in there, start above the wing, and go right up into where we marked the inside part of that eye. So we're just going to go up there, and when we get up to that channel, I'm going to raise my gouge, go straight in, and basically take that piece of wood out. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want that to be deeper on the inside than it is on the outside, so that we can get the eye to wrap around into that point. I'm going to do that same cut on the other side, here at about a 20-30 degree angle, starting above the wing, right up into that eye channel, pushing that cheek back. Pivoting cut, pop that out. We'll come back and clean that up, but right now we've got that cut in. I'm going to just take my knife, take my gouge, and clean off some of those ridges we got there. Work into the cheek just a little bit. Remove some of those ridges, just kind of clean it up. Okay. So what I'll do next is I want to take a little bit of the wood off the bottom of the nose to give it a little bit of shape, leaving that cartilage in the middle for the septum. So we're just going to take this off like this at a little angle. Take this side off at the same angle. Take that little piece out. Now all we've done is give a little bit of slope to the bottom of the nose. So it's not straight across, it's not flat on the bottom. If it was flat on the bottom, you wouldn't see the septum when you looked at it from the side. So this then will let us see that septum whenever we cut the nostrils. Alright, so now we're going to cut in the wings. Depending on the size of the caricature that you want to use, and you can do this with a knife too if you don't have the gouge that is the size you want. This is probably about 3/8, I'd say number 7. The wing area right here, at about where I know the width of the nose that I want. Now I'm not going to cut straight in. If I do, that says that's it, that's how big the nose is going to be. But if I go in at an angle, and I make that cut outboard on the nose, like that, with the gouge upside down, that lets me have some freedom in how wide I make that nose. So I've made that very deep cut there. Come right around to the back side, take my gouge, and pop that chip right out. The contours fit each other. I can take that gouge out, and now it's helped define the wing of the nose. Now if I want it to be smaller, I'll just continue that cut on in till I make it the size I want. Doing the same thing on the other side, defining about how wide I want the nose, making my cut outboard, pushing in with a good deep cut with the gouge upside down, taking that out, taking my gouge, flipping it over, just coming right back in, taking that cut out, and popping that piece of wood out, so that now I've got the wings defined on both sides. I'm going to get rid of this little bit of cheek material that's kind of up there. I'm going to right now, if I look at his nose, it's a little bit peaky right there on the tip. So I'm just going to round this over just a little bit, clean that up, get rid of some of those pencil marks so that they don't detract. I'm going to go ahead and extend that wing on up and toward the tip of the nose. And I'm just going to take this, this is about a 1/8 inch, number 11, come on the top side of the wing and make that cut. It's hard to see in there probably, but can you see that with the shadow? We just made this little cut to kind of extend this wing on up the nose. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Make that cut on the top, right into the wing. And we'll just kind of clean that whole area up a little bit. Now you want your nose to be a triangle, so if you started off with something other than a triangular stick, periodically look at it from the bottom. See that you're getting a good triangular shape, because if you don't, then work it into a triangle before you start doing too much shaping. Just cleaning that area up a little bit. Getting rid of some of those rough edges, those sharp edges, and rounding it up into the nose. So there we basically got our nose pretty well started, good enough to block it in and say that's going to be nose area. So let's go up and start working on the eyes. I'm going to make this channel a little bit deeper because I don't have enough cutaway to define the eye yet. Making this, I don't know, about 110-degree angle cut, leaving wood down below for the cheek, but taking this wood out above. Now, it's starting to get too thick in here for the forehead, so I'm just going to take a little bit of that away. Knock that forehead down a little bit. So we just, right in here, this was getting too thick because it still had the peak of the stick. So we just take a little bit of this away. Round that up, still giving the roundness. You know, just take your knife, get rid of those sharp corners, and put a little roundness in. Let's go ahead and make this eye channel a little bit wider so that we've got room to carve our eye in. Cleaning up that cut from the gouge that we made on the inside, keeping the inside corner deeper than the outside. Cleaning this up for the upper eyelid. So I'm going to sketch in where I think the top of the hat, I think the hat's going to probably come somewhere about like that. So then I'm going to define the side of the head and where his hair is coming down. I'm going to define this right in here. From the top of the hat, I'm going to say here and bring this around into the cheek. So coming from underneath the hat, I'm going to say his cheek comes down and that there's a hairline right in there. So just going to kind of make that kind of like a question mark coming down and then coming back in for the cheek. Like a little question mark in here. That's going to go up to the hat. Cheek is going to come in here. Go up into that hat. It's going to be our cheek. Look at them, see that we kind of got them, you know, you kind of want some symmetry to your caricature, so keep it going like that. That'll help us lay in the cheek lines. And know that we don't get the eyes going too far so that we still got some room there. So I still need to clean that up just a little bit. I'm going to take a V tool, just kind of use that on its side to clean up that top surface. Clean up the bottom of that channel. Just lay that V tool on its side. Use one of those wings of the V to open that up to where you want it. Now I'm just going to clean up those cuts. I'll make this one about the same size. Try to as the other side. Okay, so we got our eye channel laid in there. This side needs to be opened up a little bit more. It's not as wide. And that's why you can't just go for one feature and say, bam, there's my eyes, and you just got to go back and forth between the eyes, the nose, and everything else once you got them blocked in. Okay. I'm happy with that. Good clean cuts on the top so we can work with that. So when we lay the eye in, like I said when we started that learning stick, that it's going to be like a squashed football. I'm going to go from this inside corner, from that dot I made on the inside corner, to where I defined the outside of the eye. So I got the inside and the outside. Inside, outside of the eye. I'm going to draw my eye in for the upper eyelid, and I'm going to do that making the eye about half as tall as it is wide. I'm going to come down to the channel, the bottom of that channel, and on the outside edge I'm going to extend it past a little bit. So here, I'll take my knife, and on that line I'm going to go with my knife straight into the wood, make a deep cut following the pattern, come right on down, right on past that outside point of the eye, down into the cheek area. I'm going to do that on the other side too. Start at that inside corner, following the line, knife straight in. So what we're going to do now is just take out a thin sliver on that top eyeball that we cut, and that's going to help roll it back underneath that eyelid. Now when we make that sliver, we're going to stop at the bottom of the channel. Don't go all the way down to where you cut. So stop right here at the bottom of that channel. So we just took a sliver out. We took a little sliver out on the top of that eyeball to roll it back under the upper eyelid. We stopped right here at that point that we defined as the outside of the eyelid. We did not take that sliver out clear down there. We're going to do that on the other side too. Come in here and just lay your knife at a little bit of an angle and take out a little sliver, just a sliver. Take that out of the upper part of your eye. You can see these shadows being formed where the eyeball is rolling underneath that upper eyelid. Alright, So next what I want to do is get that curvature on the eye going from the outside corner to the inside corner. And to do that, I'm going to come back, I'm going to take my knife, I'm going to put it straight in right there at the bottom of that channel, make a stop cut. I'm going to go into the upper eyelid that I just cut out and make another stop cut. Then I'm going to lay my knife fairly flat on the eyeball and just take out a small wedge right there. You don't want to take it out too deep. If you make that cut really deep, pop out a big wedge, it's going to make your eyeball look like it's going to fall out of your head. So it's just a small one to give a little bit of a shadow where the eyeball goes back in. Same thing on the outside, right there at the bottom of the V, make that stop cut. At the upper part of the eyeball, make that stop cut. Lay your knife on the side, and then just take out a little bit of a wedge, small wedge. You don't need much, but you need a shadow there. Okay, let's do that on the other eye. Just to clean it up. Stop cut, wedge. It's on the outside edge. Stop cut, and a little wedge on the inside right there to get that out. Alright, now you may have, or you probably will have, since you made that cut to tuck the upper part of the eyeball underneath the upper eyelid, a little bit of some sharp edges right in here. Whether you can see those kind of sharp edges that are there on the eyeball. You won't get rid of those by painting, so it's best to just take your knife, smooth them out a little bit, and as you do that, you're going to cut from the top down, and so you're going to be pushing that lower eyelid out just a little bit from the eyeball. So I can go ahead along that bottom, and I usually make this bottom eyelid straight across, unless your caricature is really smiling and has some real archways to his eye to do smiling. I make that bottom pretty well straight. So this cut on the bottom is basically a straight line going across. This is a straight line for that lower eyelid. But I can make that cut straight in, and then when I shave off this material, that gives me a stop, but it helps push that lower part of the eyeball back in the head just a little bit. Alright, so we just made this straight in cut at the bottom, and we were cleaning up the eyeballs so that we've got them rounded up without any flat spots. And as we do that, we're making sure that we keep the top of the eyeball farther out than the bottom, so that you got a shape that goes like this rather than vice versa. Cleaning up both eyeballs. Alright. Next thing we got to do is put in another cut for the skin itself on the upper eyelid. So what we're going to do is, and this can be a feature that's, varies from caricature to caricature, depending on whether you want that upper eyelid to be exposed like this all the way across. You may have a flap of skin that falls down and only part of it shows. So this can be any way that you want to carve it. Typical is you see the full upper eyelid all the way across, but like I said, when I make some of them, they are covered by some of the skin. So we're just going to draw those in where we want to cut them. We just sketch in where this is going to go, and sketch in on this side where these cuts are going to be made to help give us that upper eyelid. You can do this with your knife or your V. I'm going to use the V tool here for variety. So this is where probably better if you start at the center, work to the inside, center, and work to the outside. Because if you go like this, one big cut, you're kind of going against the grain there, and you may get some chip out. So let's go ahead and see what we get here. Violating my own rule there, starting on the outside and going up, but that's what I can see under this. So I'm going to do that again because I can see it. I'm also going to use my knife to deepen that cut. All I did was go in that trough right there and put my knife kind of a little bit of an angle for that upper eyelid, and I'll do the same on this side. Let's go ahead and cut this one in too. Going back to that first one, I just want to give him a little bit more depth through there. I really like to use a larger V tool on this than a small one. If I use a small one, I tend to get more chip out, whereas this one has the wings that are big enough that they don't tend to cut on the sides like that and chip it out. Alright, so we use that V tool on our knife that we made this cut in here, laying that V tool kind of on its side to get the shape of the eyeball going back in there. Just making that cut, adding some depth here so that this says, oh, there's the eyeball, it's going back in here, and doing that same cut over here so that we now have that upper eyelid established. And you can push that back in if you really want to recess the eyes. You know, just keep making that cut deeper and deeper as you want to go. So there's our profile that we're working with right now. When I look at this, I'm going to see the eye here. I'm going to see the peak of the eyeball, and then we make this deep enough on the inside so that it wraps around and you don't see the inside of the eyeball when you look at it there. Alright, so now for the eyebrows, you know, eyebrows are going to go right along here. They can either be established right there with just some painting or whatever you want, or if you want to make them more prominent, I would kind of say, okay, this is where my eyebrow is going to go. And this is one reason I don't cut the hat in before I do this. As you can tell, I'm encroaching on where I had that hat sketched, and really I don't want it that close yet. So we got that in there. You can just take your knife and do a little rolling cut. Probably works better if I take a gouge. This is like a probably 3/8 number 11. I can go up that wood right above the eyebrow, take some of that out to pop that eyebrow out. From the forehead. So we just relieve some of this wood back here to pop that eyebrow out, relieving some of the wood right back there. Now, there's a separation between these two eyebrows at the top, so you kind of start from the inside of this eye and go up through there. Take that out. Starting at the inside of this eye, come up here and clean out some of that wood right up into where your eyebrow is. And we can come back and clean that up. But get that separation between the eyebrows, bringing it right on down into the bridge of the nose. Alright, so we just got the eyebrows kind of roughed in there. We took this channel out here at the center, going down into the eyes themselves, cleaning that up just a little bit. Get rid of some of the roughness. Alright. Profile we got so far. Let's go ahead and sketch in. I can pretty well tell the hat's going to be about where that cut is right now, and that's going to come down. That's good. Let's go ahead and put in where we want the cheeks, and then we'll do some more facial features. So okay, so we're kind of ready. We need to know where we're going to lay out the hat, just so we leave enough room for those features. So I'm seeing the bottom of the hat come in about there where I've cut above above the eyebrows. You know, a little bit of trim maybe. Top of the hat. Bring this down, and most of the time I'll put some kind of a ball on the hat in this area. So in that area, the other side, you know, that sketch in the hat, you can put a ball over here on this side. Sketching in the hat and everything. Whether you flip the ball, put it in the middle, no ball, go for variety, you know. So we kind of know where that's going to go. We've got the cheeks defined in there. Let's go ahead and sketch those in. So I'm just going to use my V tool. V tool is good because it's a little more forgiving than a knife. We're doing this so we can just define one, where the cheek is, and then two, where the hair is going to come in on the side of the face. So and the cheek in. Using just our wrist to make this cut so that if we slip, we're not going to poke it into our chest. That'll help us get a start on where we want the cheeks to go. So we defined the line in here. This is going to be hair coming down here, hair on the outside of the cheek, blending into the mustache and the beard and everything. So let's also lay in the mustache of what we're going to do on this guy. Wide variety of how you want to carve those in. Santa faces, maybe you want to wrap them up and around the cheeks like that, you know, to give more of a smiling face. Mustaches can be a variety. They can wrap up, you can wrap down. If you're doing a tree spirit or something like that, they can be as bizarre as you like. But a wide variety of shapes that you can use there. A lot depends on whether he's smiling and everything too. So we're just going to keep this one kind of simple. Well, we're going to wrap it around his cheek. Let's go ahead and do that. Now your mustache starts at the bottom of your nose, so it's not up at the wings or top of the wings or anything like that. So keep that in mind when you sketch it in. Through here. Just a rough shape of what we want. Yeah, we just kind of sketched in where we want that mustache shape to be. We're going to have to kind of define it a little bit now. I'm going to use my knife since we're going to be undercutting on this bottom side anyway, so I'm going to just start up here on the cheek, come around with the shape that I want, come back in here to the center. Kind of a symmetrical shape. On both sides. Now we're going to relieve the wood up underneath that so we get the mustache to pop out. We got this down here, we're going to get rid of that. We don't need all that wood. Now keep in mind too that your mouth is farther back than your nose. You don't see too many with the mouth being out in front of the nose. So as you push that wood back, we don't want the mouth clear out here at the front. We're going to have to push this back far enough so that we get it back there by the nose, behind the nose. Taking wood out from the bottom of the mustache to make it pop out. Kind of an undercut. That chip should pop out. If it doesn't, we'll go back and take a little more of a deep cut. A little more of a curvature of the mustache right here at the center. Taking my V-tool and just working that around so I get a little bit more of a curvature. I want it to come up, I don't want it to be straight flat across that bottom. Using my number 11 gouge to cut it. Use that gouge right on the side. You know, you don't have to use it on the bottom all the time. Use the side of your gouge. It's got a great, that 11 really wraps around, so it's got a nice flat surface to use for cutting in on the side. So coming up that side of the mustache, getting rid of some of that wood. Okay, and I'm just gonna, I want that mustache to start at the base of the nose. I don't want it to be stuck out, so tapering that back in just a little bit. Tapering it back into the face. Rounding up that cheek. Alright, another cut that's going to help me with the mustache shape or your life lines or your smile lines. They're the ones that start here at the top of the wing and they extend down, and they go from the top of the wing out, and they go toward the outside of the mouth. And the shape of your smile lines can be different whether your face is relaxed and you just have sagging skin, or whether you're smiling, then they tend to lift up. So depending on your caricature and the feature you're going for, you may want to make those a little bit different. So I'm going to start my cut right here at the top of the wing, and I'm going to bring it down and around. I kind of know where his mouth is going to be. His mouth, the width of your mouth is basically from the center line of your left eye to the center line of your right eye. So your mouth is about 2 eyes wide. So if I knew where the center line of my eyes are, I can drop that down and say, well, that's how wide the mouth is going to be, and I know where that smile line is going to go. So I made that deep cut right in here, coming along the cheek. I'm not going to cut through the mustache because it's covered up by the mustache, and I'm going to stop there. Then I'm going to come around to the top of the wing, and I'm going to use my knife straight in. I'm going to wrap it around to the bottom of the nose. So straight in cut, wrapping it around the nostril and right underneath the nose, making that a good deep stop cut. Come back, lay my knife on the side, and I should be able to take out. Wow, we were lucky. We got that wedge to come right out. If it didn't come right out, take your knife, make your cut deeper. Don't try to pry with your knife unless you want to break the tip off. But then that gives us a really nice shadow right here at the side of the nose, and where the cheeks come in, and where the mustache come in. So we made this smile line through here. We made that cut. We made that stop cut around the wing, underneath the nostril. Laid the knife on the side, took out the wedge. Going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to start at the top of the nostril. This is for the smile line. Come down, head toward the side of the mouth. Come back in to the top of the wing, start there, straight in, around the nostril, around the bottom of the nose, straight in, come back. We're going to lay the knife on the side, take out that wedge. Let's see if we can get that one to pop out. And come back, clean it up. That stop cut, that stop cut. Now we've got the nose pretty well set. And the importance of this cut is, remember when we started, we said we wanted the nose to be half off the face, half on the face. This lets that nose set back into the face. By cutting this and going back here, it lets that nose recess back so that now half of it is on the face, half of it is off the face. Very important feature unless you're doing a witch, and you can do what you want. But just kind of sloping the mustache a little bit more, getting rid of some of my pencil lines to clean it up, rounding the cheek up a little bit, get rid of those sharp cuts, round it into the face. You can make those cheeks as as bulgy as you want. If you're doing a Santa Claus, if you're doing a hillbilly, you may want to have hollow cheeks. He's not as well fed as Santa Claus. So make your caricature reflect whatever you're carving. Just cleaning up that mustache a little bit. All right. Little pairing cuts there. Pivoting. So, just to kind of sketch things in, I would imagine the beard, it's going to flow like this, flow like that. This will all become wastewood, and we can trim that off as we get our shape finalized. Let's go ahead and put in a mouth while we're down in this area. We pretty well got that pushed back now so that the mouth is going to be behind. The mouth is going to be behind the nose, so that when you shape the face, you got one angle coming out from here, the top of the head to the nose, and then from the nose back to your chin, so that that's behind there. Typically, you know, the mustache is going to cover the upper lip. The Santa Claus, if you want to make a full mouth, that's another good video. So we're just going to kind of sketch in where we want that mouth to go. I need to clean that area up a little bit more. Undercut that mustache a little bit. Get a clean area to work on down here. Okay. And once again, you can go back to Jack Ham's book and you can see where the mouth is laid out, where the noses are laid out for human features. One of the rules that Jack has is from the outside of your eye to the outside of your eye. So if I go outside to outside and I swing that down, the distance from here to your mouth is an equilateral triangle. So eye to eye gives me 1, 2, 3 eyes, and I swing that down, that would say mouth goes about there. And so we're pretty much along Jack's guidelines for laying in the mouth. He's saying that the nose is about 40% from the eye line down to the bottom of your head. We're not too bad off there. Got the mouth, and if you look at your chin to your mouth, there is sort of an arch that goes in there. We're just going to carve away some of that wood to help define the mouth. Take that out, bring out that lower lip just a little bit. We don't want it too prominent, but you got to relieve some wood to bring it out, so that's what we're going to do. So not too prominent in there, but we've got a lower lip defined. Probably smooth that up a little bit with my knife. And then what I typically do is just to give a little bit of separation between the upper and the lower parts of your mouth, I will just come in with my knife, make a little stop cut right there at the bottom of the mustache, take out another, just a little sliver. Just a small sliver right in there, just to give a little shadow to his mouth, so that his lower lip is down a little bit and his mouth is partially open. I know that creates a shadow with all the lights, but hopefully you can get the idea there, that just a small little gap. Now you can carve them with an open mouth or however you want to go. If you're doing the witches or something like that, you know, go crazy. Put your teeth in, you can put a tongue in, however you desire to shape your caricatures. So, alright, we've got that. We haven't put nostrils in yet. I'd like to wait on the nostrils, because if I cut them in too soon, then I'll go back and I'll say, oh, I want to make that nose smaller. And if I do that, then I've cut into the nostrils. So I typically leave those till just about the very last feature that I put in the nose. Let's go back real quickly here. We can sketch in a hat. Like I said, this is going to be the band. When you start doing the hat, now keep in mind what features overlap other features. So let's go ahead and define the top of this hat. Just take our V tool. So, okay, that's going to be where the hat's going to go back. I will typically carve these in like this, and then when I'm all done, I'll go to my bandsaw. I will make my saw cut through here. I'll make my saw cut through here, and that's when I'll go back, take this wood out to give the final shape that I want to the beard. and then I can shape the hat up a little bit more as they're separated. But right now we're just defining where the top of the hat's going to be. Do that with our V tool. Once you cut this off with the bandsaw, then you want to go back and give some roundness and finish that depth that you got going there. So that's that one. We're going to have, in this particular one, we're going to have the tassel coming off over here. So that tassel is going to be in front of the fur. It'll come down, and we'll just do a simulated ball right in here that it's kind of falling off the hat. Notch that in there. That's the rest of the ball is done, fell off the side of the hat. But we've got this tassel coming in over here. So like I said, that's going to lay on top of the fur. So when you come in here and carve in the fur band, you're going to want that to tuck under the tassel. And on the other side, once you define where the bottom of the hat's going to be, we will want the hair to tuck underneath the hat. So, like on this side where we've got the tassel coming over the top of the fur, and I'm going to just use my knife to make that a sharp cut. On that, tassel is over on top of the fur. Over here now we want the hair to tuck back underneath. Alright, so on this side we want the hair to tuck underneath the hat. So, you know, just a little bit of cut like that to give some shadow where that hair is going to go underneath the hat. Probably knock the edges off her hat so there's not completely a sharp edge to break off. Get the hair of the little cut. Take out a little bit of the sliver to give a little bit of a shadow. That'll also help pull the face back in where the temple goes. Taking out just a little sliver right there where the, just kind of raise the hair up off the face, give you another shadow. Shadows are your friend. I mean, they're what give your whole caricature the dimension. You get some of it with painting, but really your carving is what does it. Clean up the pencil marks. Give a little roundness to the head. You can go ahead and do that later on. Typically with the fur, I will go in with a small gouge and just make a series of random cuts. Don't make them all in a row or anything that gets to be too boring. So just add some texture. You'll see a lot of different ways to texture the fur. Some people just make big sweeps. Some people, like myself, I usually make the smaller gouge cuts. When you go back and you paint these, and you can do a little bit of dry brushing with some darker and lighter colors and really bring the fur out. All right, let's do just a quickie here. Let's talk about eyebrows and mustache, and then we'll get that in. Keep in mind which way your eyebrows are going to go. You know, they're starting at the center of your face and they're coming out, and they're tending to roll over. Once again, a wide variety. Some people go in, they may make 2 rows of eyebrows in here. It helps give some depth. You can make 1, you can make them long sweeping curves, or whatever, but we're just going to add some texture here so that it picks up when we paint, remembering that they're sweeping out and around. They're tending to lay over more as they go towards the outside edge. You can do this with start with a gouge, then go back and make smaller cuts inside that if you want. It's kind of your choice. Same thing on the mustache. Let's go ahead and lay that in. What I typically do on the mustache is I will start in the center and usually make, I'm going to go back to this 11, one defined cut coming up the middle, pretty well straight on. And then I'll come back and, just like the eyebrows, tend to lay those over as I go. So we're going to make a series of gouge cuts, laying those over as we go out. We tend to lay them down as we sweep out this way, both sides. Now, there's really no right or wrong. There's maybe some better ways, but everybody will say, oh, carve your hair in big sweeping lines. You don't want any straight lines. You know, you want S's and C's. And then sure enough, you'll see somebody's carving with just a series of straight lines, and you go, wow, that looks pretty good. So it's kind of user's perception. But what I tend to do with most of these, whether you're doing the mustache or the beard itself, make that first with the deep cuts. Then I'll go back with a smaller gouge, and to give it some real depth, make cuts within those cuts, overlapping them a little bit. Going inside, maybe cutting over and around and down inside that trough that I cut before. And then if you're really up to it, you can take another smaller even V-tool and add more texture. Just by making more cuts, it helps overlap the hairs and make them look not so uniform. Now, the other thing I do with my mustaches that I find effective is I make a series of cuts along the bottom too, to break up that smooth curve that we've got going here. So I'll come in here and I'll just do a straight in push cut, and take out a little wedge. And I'm trying to make them kind of random, but I'm going to make them flow with the way the mustache is going. You see how that just pops out of there? Make another cut, make another cut, take that piece out. I think that really adds character to the mustache as opposed to the smooth line that you get through this cut. So we're just kind of making those random, like the hairs are not quite all aligned, and but tending to make them flow with the way the mustache is going. So I think that adds more shadows to it. I like that effect. Alright, so if everything is pretty well happy, we've got, I think, a decent profile. We've got our eyes laid in, we've got the nose pretty well there. The cheeks look pretty good. Hat's on. Like I said, I would do a lot of this after I took it to the bandsaw, but you can just take out some of this to give some initial shape to the beard. Probably with the beard is where you do more of the long sweeping cuts and the C's as opposed to some of this up here, but you know, you can just come right in here and make these cuts flow with a series of C's and S's, however you want this beard to go. Sometimes they will sweep off to the side, you know, like they're being carried by the wind. You may want the beard to kind of come here and then flow out and then flow back in, you know, give some real shape to your beard. If you want it to come in and out, up to you. Make those cuts. So once you get that first cut laid in, I think this is where it's important to go back with your different gouges and do those other cuts to really get the depth into your beard and everything. So you're just coming in, already got some cuts made, you're going into those valleys, out of those valleys, sweeping with different curves, helping it overlay the hair that's there. You can go back then with an even smaller gouge. Once again, don't worry about staying in the valley. You can go in the valley, you can go in and out and up. This would need to be cleaned up in here around where I took out for his mouth, just to shape that up a little bit. Just use your gouges to go in and out and make that hair feel like it's got some depth and flow to it, and layers basically. And then when you paint, it'll become even better, because then you can go back and dry brush and use a multitude of layers when you paint your carving. Don't just paint it one basic color. Lay it in with the gray, some yellow, come back, dry brush with the white. Gonna get that. Now I think we're just about there. We still got to put the nostrils in, and I'm satisfied with that nose. Looks pretty good. Might want to round it over a little bit. Get rid of some of those peaks. Now, when we put that bottom septum in, and the nostrils, we made a straight cut. I think it also gives them a lot of caricature if you come back with your gouge, and once again this is at, I think, a 7, probably 3/8. Yeah, I think that'll work. I'm just going to come in here and take out the bottom. Now, if you look at this side of the nose, which we just did the straight end cut, and you look at this side, where now we've taken some of that wood out with our gouge. I think I like this look. I think it adds a lot more caricature and caricature to your caricature. Just pushing that in and taking out that cut. And if it doesn't pop right out, you can take your knife and undercut that and get that piece to come out. Leaving your septum in the middle. You still want that cartilage running down the center. Just Just cleaning up those cuts. Laying your knife flat on the mustache, getting those cuts to pop out of there, out of that. Now you can go back. I oftentimes will go back. You can see here I go back in there with a Dremel, and depending on the size, I will take a small tapered diamond and go back up in there to give even more depth and more shadow to the nostril area. But if you want to just use your tools like this, hand tools, that works well. So we got the mouth in, we got the lower lip. I think we're pretty well there. Like I said before, on the eyes, let me just talk about eyes quickly. If you do your caricature looking straight at you, it's a very difficult look to get, because if your eyes are off just by a little bit, it gives them an odd look. So if you can make them look just to the side a little bit, you don't have to go clear to the side, but just off center a little bit helps. I'm going to do two ways. So if I were to paint, you know, I would come in here, I'd paint the eyeball white, come back in, paint in the iris, then come back, paint the pupil, and then be sure you put that little white reflective dot on there to it really makes the eye pop when you get that little dot of reflection. You could paint that in and go that way. If you want to carve it in, decide where the eye is going to go, we would just make a couple of cuts. We can make a couple of cuts like I did on this one. You don't want them completely circular, so there's just going to be two arcs. But you're going to make a cut that depicts where the iris is going to go. So cut, and then you can come back with your small gouge, and if you want to take that out, and then a knife cut at the top. So by just making this cut and a knife cut, pop out that little piece. When you stain it, that area is going to stain darker, and it's going to add that feature into the eye, just like if you'd have painted it in there. So that works well. We put in the lower eyelid, but really we didn't take any of the material off from the cheek to actually show it. So what we want to do now is take a little bit of material off on the bottom of the cheek here, so that we pick up the eyeball being rounded above the cheekbone. And then if you want to add in bags or anything like that, you can add those in too. But it's just a matter of taking a small gouge. I'm going to use this 1/8 number 11 right below the eye. I'm just going to carve in an area that helps to define the lower eyelid. So if you can see this here, we're just doing this carving right here, carving right in here and here, with just recessing the cheek, and that gives us this part right in here, which is the lower eyelid going into the cheekbone. Then if you're you got some smiling going on your caricature, what you probably want to do is put in a few wrinkles here into the cheek to give the smiling impression. 3 is always a good one. And then you can go back here and add some crow's feet. Oh, and I got one more cut, I forgot. I have to piece in. You remember when we did this cut and I extended it on out here past the lower eyelid? We want to go back and take that wedge out because the upper eyelid overlaps the lower. So I'm just taking this wedge out right here. This lets that upper eyelid on the outside edge overlap the lower. We made this cut when we made that first one for the upper eyelid. Then come back here Take out that wedge. Once again, upper eyelid overlaps, upper eyelid overlaps the lower. Only on the outside. On the inside, they come together and they meet. But right here, we got to do that. So then we've got this piece we took out here that defines the lower eyelid. Add in a few wrinkles right in here. And on the outside edge, if you want to add, you know, some cuts to indicate crow's feet as the skin wrinkles up right in there when you smile. Those will show up whenever you add a little bit of a stain or paint to it. So, if you paint the eyes, I took a class with Michelle Carvel years ago up at Doan, and the reason I wanted to go to her class was to learn about painting. Is that once you paint the eyes, is you go back and you use a light wash of charcoal with a liner brush, and you paint around the top of your eyelid. Try to keep it off the white, but you paint the inside of that eyelid right there with just a light wash of black. On the bottom eyelid, you come back with a light wash using your liner brush of burnt sienna. That is like putting eyeshadow on your Santa Claus. It's like putting in the eyelashes. I get more compliments on my eyes than any other feature of the faces when somebody purchases one of my ornaments. So using her tip, I think it's outstanding. It just really brings the eye out with a little bit of an eyeshadow there. The other thing I typically do is, once I get everything carved, is I will go back, hollow out the back side, just to make the ornaments lighter so that they're lightweight when you hang them on the tree. Put a little eyelid in the top and you're good to go.